the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, how you doing? How you doing? You know I'm good. Today's Wednesday, October 10th, 2018. 286 days into the new year. I almost said years. 79 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Welcome. It's Fade to Black. And tonight is night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black, and I would like to say it's been an amazing, amazing time here. Amazing. And it's about the knowledge. We'll be talking about that all night tonight with our guest. Brad Klausen is here. That's right. Artist Brad Klausen. More on Brad in just a bit. 3 nights, 3 first-time guests here on Fade to Black. Incredible. Tomorrow night is another Fader night. Open lines all night long. And you know what to do on social media. You can go chase us down on OnStellar, OnStellar.com, OnStellar.com. Of course, Twitter, at JChurchRadio. You can do that there on Twitter. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and join in on all of the amazing conversation. Yeah, I see all the retweets here. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I see what you guys are doing. And YouTube, Facebook, everything is Jimmy Church or Fade to Black. And there you go. Any questions or comments on the show tonight? Hashtag F2B on Twitter. All of that is very simple. And I see what you guys are doing. You guys are retweeting. Yes, I got a new guitar for my birthday from Rita and Deanna and Nicole. Thank you for it. Yes, it is a beautiful white, Olympic white Stratocaster. It is hanging on the wall behind me. And there you go. So that's what that is. And it is beautiful. It plays nice. I want to thank Billy Siegel, A&R manager over at Fender Guitars, Fender Instruments, for assisting in the big surprise. Thank you, Billy. You're just a really, really cool dude. And that got pulled off, and there it is. Right there. It's it plays as nice as it looks too. It's just one of the, when you get a new guitar, when you're a kid, right? You're a kid, you're 15, 14, 13, 12 years old, and you get your first guitar and it's in a case, right? And you open it up, there's a smell. And you never forget that smell. And every time, it's just like buying a new car. And every time you get a new car and you jump in, you're like, man, that new car smell. Right? It's the same thing with guitars. You open that thing up and there's a smell. And I'm going to say that has never left. The smell is there. And Olympic white apparently smells best. So with that, yes, today is my birthday. So thank you for all of the birthday wishes. They've been coming in all day long. Thank you. Thank you. Double Nickel, 55 years old. And I got a really cool gift today from Mate Meyer. And so before we do that, I'll talk about that in a second. But here is the birthday card. There you go, Mate Meyer. All right. And yeah, he sent me ELO at Wembley or Bust, the DVD collection. Thank you for that. And he also sent me the movie Soyuz 7, which, and thank you for that. Sent me Soyuz 7, which is one of the craziest stories in all of space travel. And Soyuz 7, if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. I'm going to rewatch it. I've seen it. Rita, when we watched Soyuz 7 the first time through, and it's interesting that Mate sent us this. He didn't know. We see Soyuz 7, and Rita's like, man, I grew up in Russia. I would have remembered this if it was true. This is the craziest story ever. Well, it turned out to be true. And if you haven't seen it, Soyuz 7, maybe one night on the show we'll cover it. And I'll bring on somebody to talk about Soyuz 7, because if you think Apollo 13 was nuts, Soyuz 7 was every bit, if not as crazier than Apollo 13. Russia had their own Apollo 13, Soyuz 7. Okay, so with that, let's get the show cracking. Got a lot to do tonight. Brad Klausen is here. You can email throughout the show tonight, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. And let me get to the breaking news that has been going on all day long today. I don't think you missed some of this, because today the Dow plunged nearly 832 points. Today, the third worst point decline in history. All 30 Dow stocks were in the red, sending the index below 26,000 points for the first time in a month. The index fell by more than 3%. That's not all. The S&P 500 posted its fifth straight decline, plummeting nearly 3.3%. Tech stocks got hit really bad, and the NASDAQ dropped more than 4% in the worst percentage decline since June of 2016. Wow. Things always, they say to go up, you got to go down. To go down, you got to go up. All that stuff comes into play here. Are we seeing some kind of equalization? I don't want another repeat of 2008. Oh, man. There you go. But I don't know how much money was lost today. I'm going to get to some other numbers here in just a bit. Also today, Hurricane Michael made landfall, hit the Florida Panhandle today. I watched it all day live on television. It is still playing out. It's been downgraded to a Category 1. That was right before the show. It's probably down to just a tropical storm by this point. But it was big winds. It was big damage. And so far, only one death has been reported. Now, they're going in now, and all the first responders are able to go in and get through this. Some of the footage is just incredible, but it was very close to being a Category 5. It was just a couple of miles per hour off of the wind speed, but it was a gnarly day today with that. But I'm gonna say only one death so far reported, and we haven't had that much bad news. I would say that everybody prepared for this and responded to it. So fingers crossed. But right now, no big catastrophic crazy stuff coming out. We're not going to have a repeat of Katrina for sure. And also today, now this may have gotten away from all of you, so that's why you're here. Greece, news out of Greece. Greece has banned overweight American tourists from riding donkeys on the popular island of Santorini after activists complained that they were suffering spinal injuries. The donkeys. Sightseers often pay to ride the donkeys up steep slopes from the shore to the island's main town, but transporting heavier travelers, Americans, has taken its toll on the creatures and prompted anger from campaign groups. People wishing to ride the donkeys will now have to weigh less than 220 pounds, or 1/5 of the donkey's total body weight. What do you make of that? I was just kidding about the Americans part. No, I wasn't. Yeah, I was. No, I wasn't. I wasn't. Okay, here we go. Other numbers news. It's going to blow your mind. Are you ready? Video ads that you see all day long. Video ads on the internet, right? Video ads. You can't escape them. Video ads today account for about 1/4 of all digital advertising in the United States. Facebook is absolutely dominant in that space, accounting for 25% of digital advertising revenue this year. How much is that in dollars? Great question, and I'm glad you asked. Facebook's U.S. video ad revenue, including Instagram, is projected to total $6.81 billion this year. That's over twice as much as the net revenue from second place Google. That's right. Google will generate from YouTube less than half, $3.36 billion. And you need to chew on that and think about what I just said. That is insane. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. That's right. It's just $2 per month. Go to jimmychurchradio.com. Click on that podcast banner. It helps support this show. And you get all of the apps that you need. It doesn't matter about the platform. Go to the Apple Store, go to the Google Store, download what you need, head over to our website, sign up over at Libsyn. $2 a month. We have over 900 archive shows right there for your listening pleasure. You can also become a Fadernaut, help support the show again. Do both. Only listen to one, but do both. It's $2 a month, right? It's just $2, but you help support the show. You can also become a Fadernaut over in our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. You can get autographed shirts and hats. You can also get downloadable, commercial-free downloadable archives right there, updated every single day. All right, help support the show. And don't forget, check out all of our sponsors here at Fade to Black. Just click on their banners, go and visit their sites. It doesn't matter. Life Change Tea, New Manna Food Storage, of course, Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee, right? Fast Start Diet. Everybody's asking me how I've lost all of this weight. Look at this shirt. It's falling off of me. I did it with Fast Start Diet. That's it. Fasting is the thing. Everybody's talking about fasting today. Fasting. Well, how do I fast? Fast Start Diet will get you on that fasting program. It's a 3-day diet, and it's going to change your metabolism. It's going to change what you do, and it has changed me, truly. All right? So there you go. Visit all of our sponsors. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, me. Yeah, I had to say it. David Lee Roth today is 64 years old. And also, man, you see that bug? Some crazy bug down here just buzzed my head. Did you see that? Did you see it on the camera? Bam! That was cool. Freaky, tiny little dude. Also today, one of my fast growing at the top of my list in singerdom today, Lizzie Hale is 34 years old. She's the singer for Hailstorm, and she shreds too. Man, she's got those Explorers. She's a shredder. She really is, and she's a great singer. Great singer. Hailstorm. If you haven't checked out well, they won a Grammy a few years ago for Album of the Year, but just great singer, great front woman, great guitar player. All right. Have you seen their new video? What is that thing called? I don't know. It's a good video. Song Poison. Oof, man, she's great. Anyway, Lizzie Hale today is 34. On this day in history, OTD. 1987, it went down. It did. The world changed on this day in 1987 because it was the day that Whitesnake released the video for Here I Go Again, featuring 2 Jaguars and Tawny Katane. Yeah, that's why you love this show. Come on, admit it. Fate or fact? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Right? This is one of the big unanswered questions of the universe. Well, the world may never know, but on average, a licking machine made at Purdue University in Indiana needed just 364. And that is your fate or fact. Tonight, night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. We have very special guest artist Brad Klausen joins the show. He is absolutely amazing. He is featured in the Magical Egypt documentary series by Chance Gardner. He's also going to be featured, I think, on the closing night. We'll talk about that tonight, of the Magical Egypt online symposium that is going on right now. You can sign up for that over at magicalegypt.com. Tonight, artist Brad Klausen. Tomorrow night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. All right, let me hit this coffee. Fade to Black blend. Fade to Black blend. We got a burr grinder now. And a burr... Is that Tawny Katane? Eric, you are just... I got to click on this. Is that Tawny? That's funny. That's funny. Okay, anyway, if you want to see what we're laughing about, just go over to hashtag F2B. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, and then head straight over. Okay, let me hit this Fade to Black blend. Because with the knowledge that we've been spreading all week long, and of course I went over and hung out with Chance for a couple hours for the Magical Egypt Symposium. And I talked about this last night with Christopher Dunn, and it was with Chris, and also on Monday with Manu Savezadeh. And the thing that I need to constantly reestablish, get our footing back, is, okay, look, just let me lay it out for you. The story kind of goes like this. All right, let me cut to the chase. The official history of the world, the one that they want us to believe and have been teaching us for generations, is that everything started around 3000 BC in Egypt, followed by Greece and Rome, which didn't happen, by the way, for another 2,500 years or so, right in there. No real mention of ancient Sumer. They don't talk about China. They don't bring up Northern Europe or Central or South America. They don't bring up Australia and the Aborigines. They don't do it. Nope. It's just not talked about. But the other part of the story that gets repeated over and over again is that early man, humans, the very start of everything, of us, came out of Central and Southern Africa, right? Yeah, they'll bring that up too. And I'm going to get back to this point in a minute, so just stay with me. While Egypt and Mesopotamia were rocketing off with technology, and they did. There's no question about it. The first schools, the first music, the first laws, the first courts, the first governments and agriculture and streets, infrastructure, right? Cities, all of this stuff happened at the same time, right there, Egypt and Mesopotamia. But while this was happening, islands in the Mediterranean were also jumping at the same time, but they don't talk about this. And if you really get down to some technical points, at the same time, 3000 to 3200 BC. Yeah. But something strange happened because everything collapsed. And for 500 to 600 years, the whole area went into a dark age. Again, and a very serious dark age, one that isn't talked about. You know, we talk about what went down in Europe and Great Britain. We talk about those dark ages, but we don't talk about what happened in the Aegean Sea in Greece. We don't go there. Virtually nothing was written. And in that period, for about 1,000 years, you know, from 3200 BC to around 2000 BC, all the way up, you know, touching, this period, they had everything. All of the knowledge and progress was happening in this one area of the world. And you had the Mediterranean, the Aegean Sea, you had the Nile Valley, you had the Mediterranean, you know, from Greece all the way over to Israel, you know, heading east into Syria and Iraq. A crazy amount of knowledge, all bursting at the seams at the same time. And you could draw a circle around it. You could just draw this circle, right? Right there. Outside of it, stone-aged nothingness was going on. Right? Or so that's what they want us to believe. That's what they want to teach us. That's what they want us to think. Well, I try to drive this point home as often as I can. But if we think about that circle, that imaginary circle, right, all the way over to the east to Sumer, you know, the Euphrates, you know, Israel right there, you know, Lebanon, that whole part of the Mediterranean, of course, going down to Egypt, and then you go up to southern Greece and the Aegean Sea and those islands that were up there. You know, that circle. But this is where it gets strange. You have to ask yourself, where did the foundation of all of this knowledge come from? Because it seems that it should have come from Southern Africa. Because after all, civilization had a 4 million year jump on things. Right? But it didn't. First, and this is very important, the islands of Greece and the Aegean Sea should have had things happening 200 years before Egypt. And they may have, but they lost it. They went into the Dark Age. And apparently, while things were developed for the Minoans, and it was jumping off, things were really cool. But they had no idea. They did some trading, you know, some superficial communication going down, but they had no idea about the truly amazing things that were happening in Egypt, and they didn't have any idea what was going on in Sumer. But this is where history really comes off the rails, and it's Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe discovered in 1995. Before that, the history books were solid in the way that they approached the start of everything at 3000 BC. Again, and I'm going to repeat, it was Egypt, Greece, then Rome. And they just eliminate everything else. But yes, it was Göbekli Tepe. Did the knowledge travel north from southern Africa, right, up through Egypt, over to Sumer, and then up to Armenia and Göbekli Tepe? Remember, it was Armenia back then. It wasn't modern-day Turkey. That was Armenia. No, it didn't. It didn't happen that way. Göbekli Tepe happened 7,000 years before the Nile Valley, before the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers, which means that the tech came from the north. There was no trail of evidence from south to north. And if we look at things as we should, with everything as it's presented today and as we know it, everything that we've been told doesn't hold up. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Now, this is what I think. This is how I think the education system is going to start to approach this. I think the next searches for real history will take place around the Black Sea, modern-day Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, on the east side, Georgia, Russia itself. They'll say that it's probably from these regions that an ancient culture existed and thrived and taught the builders of Göbekli Tepe, that the knowledge came from the north and went south. And that knowledge spread in that direction. But we're a little too smart for that, especially here on Fade to Black. It all came from the center of that circle that I mentioned earlier. Think about it. That circle. And Göbekli Tepe, if you draw that circle correctly and you go through ancient Sumer, up at the top edge of that circle that you draw is Göbekli Tepe. It's part of it. Think about it seriously. The knowledge started in the center there. Nile, Sumer, right? Ancient Greece, 3000 BC. And Göbekli Tepe is up there. It's part of this circle, even though it was 7,000 years before. You need to think about this. And don't let the man snow us on this. We're too smart. It happened the opposite, the exact opposite, as they are trying to teach us in the history books today. Think about that. We're going to discuss all of this tonight because it is night 3 of our Egypt week. And we have very special guest artist Brad Klausen joins the show. Now, what you need to do, this is what I would do. I'm going to head towards a break right here. And while I'm at this break, you need to Google Brad Klausen, Klausen. That's it. Click on images. Go and look at Brad's artwork. You're going to get a grasp of who we have on the show tonight and his research into ancient Egypt and symbolism and what is going on not only throughout history and its influence on cultures around the world, but all the way through to today in his own personal artwork, the other artwork that he does, and in throughout pop culture. It's going to be a great show tonight. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. I'll be right back.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black Blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to getthetea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church, and whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Night 3 of our Egypt week, right here on Fade to Black. Great week, too. Amazing week. We're going to wrap things up tonight with artist Brad Klausen, who grew up right here in Southern California. He moved to Seattle in 1999 to begin a 9-year career as the in-house designer for Pearl Jam. In July 2007, he launched Artillery Design, his one-man design shop, where he continues to make posters for Pearl Jam, Built to Spill, Widespread Panic. I think, Brad, I'm going to continue with this, but the list of bands is long, and I've cut it off here because I just want to whip it out on everybody here in just a bit. So we'll do that in just a second. His new book, it's called New from a Basement in Seattle, The Poster Art of Brad Klausen. It's an extensive look into the creative process on how he designs all of this imagery for these rock posters. But tonight, we're going to discuss not only his journey in discovering the symbology in ancient Egyptian art and sculpture and his contribution to the Magical Egypt documentary and symposium, but we're going to talk about how he uses it today in his own artwork, both personal and in the world of rock and roll, and how it exists throughout pop culture and our education system.
His website is artillerydesign.com, and I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Brad Klausen. Brad, how are you? Good evening, man.
I'm good, Jimmy. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so glad that you're here. But you know what? Before we get started, Brad, we've got to do the first-time guest disclaimer. Okay? And it's simple, man. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts, and where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. There you go. See? Easy.
Okay.
See, you were sweating there for a second.
Oh, hey, happy birthday, by the way, too.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I don't know how old you are, but I hit the double nickel. The double nickel. I can't even believe it. You know, and you and I were talking before the show. We're talking rock and roll for we couldn't get off the phone, right? Having so much fun.
Right.
And you got a pretty good taste of my history, right? We have a lot of mutual friends between the two of us. And that's me. I'm 55. I can't even believe it. I don't know where the years went, and I don't feel it. I hope I don't look it. But yeah, I never thought that, in the world of rock and roll, 55. But here we are. There you go.
Well, it's funny you say that, because it's brought to my attention a lot of the times that the artwork that I do for different bands, a lot of those bands are in their 50s. I mean, Pearl Jam, Queens of the Stone Age, the Foo Fighters, those dudes are in their, late 40s to their early 50s. And that's an interesting thing to observe, that there's all these bands, these big rock bands that are still doing it. And,
Yeah, look at Metallica, man. And if we think about it.
Metallica, exactly.
If we think, Metallica is right behind the Stones as far as age goes, man. I mean, and they're still doing it, and they sound great, and they sound as good as they've ever sounded. But we're talking about guys that are going to be in assisted living here very soon. Right? Let's not. Today is David Lee Roth's birthday. He's 66 today. 66. Now, when we were kids, when Roth was a kid, 66 was the anti-establishment, man. That was the man. That's who you were trying to bring down. Where are we today when David Lee Roth is 66 years old? Oh, man. I'll tell you a funny story, and then we're going to move on. Van Halen's one of my favorite bands, right? Just, it's my top one or two bands of all time. And I'm driving, this is about 15 years ago. And I'm in the car, and I've got my daughters are in the back seat. And Dance the Night Away comes on the radio. And I crank it up. Just crank it. And I'm just playing air drums and air guitar, and I'm driving the car, and I'm just rocking out. And it's such a fresh-sounding song. To me, it's timeless, right? It's going to sound great in 50 years, just like it sounds great today. And I turn to my daughters. I turn it down and I go, "Isn't this great?" And my daughter Diana goes, "It's ancient." And that was their response. This is old people's music. And
it's funny. My dad, I used to get him when I was a kid. He's a big Neil Diamond guy, and I'd always ask him to play Holly Holy, because it would be one of the few times where he would just crank the stereo and rock out. And as a kid, it was kind of cool. It was one of the few times to see your dad actually just sort of not care and rock out and pound the steering wheel and be stoked. So
right,
I think it's good for kids to see that.
And it's so funny that and I like Neil. He's a cool guy and everything. But our parents went through the same things that we're going through today. It's the cycle of life. Right? Where the music that our parents listened to, and if you think about it, in what they were listening to in 1968 was either, the Stones or like the Dave Clark Five, right? It's just like,
right.
And how ancient is that? But yet, 1965 and and how things changed between 1965 and 1970 with Woodstock and Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and things, Deep Purple. Things changed very, very quickly. So now you've got a generation, by 1975 with Ted Nugent and Zeppelin and UFO and whatever, these Judas Priest, right? And how quickly that generation changed. It flipped. It went from Dave Clark 5 and Herman's Hermits to Deep Purple, Highway Star. Wow. Right? Right? And
yeah. Well, it's even like the Beatles going from, I want to hold your hand to,
Let It Bleed.
Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, man. No doubt. And we've seen the same generational changes through us right now, where we went through, you and I were talking about this, where we went through big hair and the MTV age of 85, 86, 87 to rapidly flipping things over with Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and the whole grunge scene, which dominated the world. I mean, it just took over. Flannel shirts and heroin, right? It just like, and that whole thing, that grunge thing, it snuck up on us, and we didn't expect that either. And it's crazy. It's crazy how we've seen it.
I would say that even the same thing too. What you're talking about though is that like I've definitely become the old man who thinks that music is not nearly as good as it was when like you're saying that like I'm the the old man who's like, this music, you call that music, and I think hip hop. I'm not that big a hip hop head, but I pay a little bit of attention to it. I think hip hop is having its sort of hair metal kind of phase. I think there's with all the mumble rap and all that stuff. I feel like that scene is due for some sort of pendulum swing. In the same way that you had like the hair bands and then grunge came in and you kind of knocked it off. I feel like to me, when I look at modern day hip hop, I go, oh, this is the the late '80s in LA, and it's all the Sunset Strip and it's all those bands and stuff like that. And then, like you said, then nobody anticipated Nirvana and grunge coming and just sort of destroying that whole scene. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen in hip hop, because it seems like it's a similar cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would have never. I don't think anybody from 1975 to 1985 would have ever seen rock and roll going away. Right? These huge stadiums, Monsters of Rock tour, and Cal Jam, and just crazy festivals in Europe, and the hugeness of it all, right? Donington and how powerful rock and roll was. And it's not around today. We support it with the geriatric crowd, and we love our rock and roll, but it doesn't dominate the airwaves. It does. It's not anywhere, and everything goes through its phases, because grunge did the same thing. I don't think Eddie Vedder or even Kurt Cobain with his short burst through it, or Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. I don't think any of them anticipated playing arenas. That's not stadium tours. I don't think that they expected that, but it happened and it went away. What do you think the next?
Well, I don't know. I think I was this summer. I just saw Pearl Jam play at Safeco, and I saw the Foo Fighters play at Safeco. And if you look at pictures of those shots of those stadiums, it's insane how many people it is, and it's a big arena rock show, and it's not. You're right. It's not on the airwaves, but like that stuff still. But they're still putting butts in the seats, because it's like I said, if you go look at a photo of Pearl Jam playing at Safeco, it's mind blowing to me that a band 25 plus years into their career is still having these massive shows like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about that. Foo Fighters is definitely keeping the flag waving. You know, those concerts that they do over there at Wembley, I mean, that is just, you watch that and you're just, oh man. So yes, but it's not the dominant force on this planet.
No.
It's I would have never thought that it would go away. But we've had these, let's stay on this for a second. I do want to talk about you, but I like talking music too. I would rather talk about anything but me, so let's talk about this. There you go. Is we've had, we had London a couple of times come through. We've had New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco and Chicago and Detroit and Seattle. Where's the next big wave? Where's it going to come from? What do you think?
I don't know. I like we were talking about earlier before. I talked to my brother who's 26, and he's a musician, and I'm out of touch with the sort of the modern music scene. I don't pay as much attention as I used to when I was a kid. So if there is some new scene of music growing out there in the undergrounds of places, I don't have my finger on the pulse of it, but. My brother had brought up sort of an interesting point, which was he says, I keep kind of waiting for that to happen. I love those moments where, like, the Seattle thing happens, like you said, or like in New York or Detroit or, in the punk rock thing in England. I keep waiting for what's the next thing that's going to change the whole, that's going to, like you said, like with flannel, that all of a sudden this whole musical genre is going to just sweep across the globe and change it in ways that people don't anticipate. I keep eagerly waiting for that next big movement, because those are such interesting moments in time. And my brother had brought up this point that he thinks because of the internet, because everybody's so interconnected and that you have so much access to what's happening in the other side of the planet, that you don't have as many little scenes and as many little places that are sort of isolated and like Seattle being up in the far end of the Pacific Northwest, and bands wouldn't come and tour here, so they just did their own thing and entertained themselves. I feel like because of the interconnection of the internet, everybody's aware of what everything else is going on. So I'm curious to know if you can have those interesting little artistic explosions in these places. I would imagine you still can, and I'm guessing that they're happening. I'm just an old man who's not paying attention to where those kids are that are actually pushing and creating a whole new style and a whole new scene or something. But I've been waiting for a long time, because what was the Seattle thing was the 90s, so we're getting into 20 years, and it's got to be a cycle. I mean, if you get like punk rock and I feel like we're due. I feel like there's enough time has transpired, and like I said, that even like just noticing the whole hip hop and the mumble rap thing, that's kind of superficial, and there's not much substance to it. I feel like at some point the pendulum's going to swing the other way, and you're just going to get some really rich, dynamic, creative, artistic, some new variation of music. Because there's only 12 minutes, right? You can only do so much. You're not going to reinvent the wheel, but artists are so good at taking the tools that we have.
Yeah, we just lost your cell phone. We lost the bars.
Oh, can you hear me now? Is that any better?
Yeah, we got you back. But yeah, we lost your bars there for a second. Your approach, we're going to head towards the top of the hour here. Your approach and your talent, I can't say and speak highly enough about it. I mean, it's very impressive, and I know you've heard so much about that over. So I don't need to address that. But what I want to know is, when did you start to find out that you could draw? How old were you? Were you like 2? Did you bounce out of the womb with a pencil in your hand?
I was drawing when I was a kid. I can't remember exactly when I started to draw, but I remember it being something I very much enjoyed and liked doing at a very early age. And so I don't have a real strong recollection of the year or the moment, but I can always remember as a kid liking to draw. And I think some of the first things I can remember drawing was, there was I don't know if it still exists, a surf company called Town and Country.
Yes.
And they had these characters, and one of them was like, I think it was Thriller Gorilla, and I had a T-shirt, and it was just this gorilla with like this 80s looking gorilla with sunglasses and a surfboard, and I would just copy those, and I would draw. And I can remember that was one of the first things I can remember drawing. But I think my mom was a good parent who she realized that she saw her kid was interested in something, and then the thing that parents have to do with their kids in the summertime is anytime is figure out what you're going to do with them, and so she saw that I had an interest in drawing and will put me into art classes. And so I think that just kind of went from there. And then in high school, I was in school, I was always the kid drawing in the margins of his textbooks, and my teachers would come over and be like, that's a good drawing, but you're not paying attention, and so it was something that I was always doing. And the funny thing I always think when I look back on it is adults will always come up to you when you're drawing when you're a little kid, and they would always say the same thing. They'd always say, oh, you could be an architect.
Right.
And they were like putting a profession and a career to it. When you're a little kid, you don't, I'm like, okay, I just like to draw. I didn't have that. You don't have that idea that this is going to be something that you could make into a career, that this is a talent or a skill. Adults would always kind of praise me for it. But then they'd always attach that architect thing. So I think from an early age, I just figured, well, I guess I have to become an architect because that's what everybody keeps saying,
Well, so what
you should do with this.
And what did you do after high school?
I went to the University of Denver, and I got a BSA in graphic design. Originally, my plan was that I was going to be Wayne Gretzky, and I was absolutely positive that was going to happen. And that was going to be this tall, lanky kid from Southern California. That was going to be the Cinderella story, who's going to, walk on to the University of Denver Division I hockey team and become this famous hockey player. And that delusion was cut short. Once I got to college and realized, like, oh, I can't compete with all these kids. I ended up playing hockey on the club team and was one of the worst players on that team. So pretty quickly on, I was like, I better follow this art thing instead. So it was good to always have art there to fall back on, because I was not going to become Wayne Gretzky.
How much of what you do is electronic art, computer assisted, and how much of it is real?
It all starts with pencil and paper. So I just every poster starts off with me just sitting down with my sketchbook and trying to draw some imagery out of my head, and then maybe I scan that into the computer, and then I'll print it back out and I ink it, and so it all starts with regular old pencil and paper, and then once I get the drawing or the inking to where I want it to be, then I put it into Photoshop and I can start coloring it and manipulating it and chopping it up, and if there's places in the drawing that I need to move or rearrange or do something like that. So it's probably 50-50. I mean, because there's the original pencil drawings and the inkings that I do, and then you just bring that into Photoshop and turn it into what it becomes.
Right. And how did you, we've got 5 minutes before the break. How did you start to employ both mediums? In that, or did you always have computers around you and you decided that you were going to use it to assist what you are doing?
Originally, I was, when it wasn't until I got to college that I first got kind of introduced into being able to use computers for design. And I fell in love with that and almost sort of stopped illustrating and just was trying to do all kinds of computer manipulation and collage and things like that.
Right.
And that kind of even took me away. Even once I got the job working for Pearl Jam, there was a point where I had to kind of go back to the more hands-on artwork of pencil and paper. And the introduction of the computer as a new tool was certainly exciting, and I gravitated towards it. But then you just realize, like, it's just another tool in the toolbox, and it shouldn't be your main focus. But that if you can incorporate painting and illustration and all these other things, and then you just have that many more skills to bring into the computer and manipulate that stuff. So at first I was a bit smitten with the computer, and then I'm glad that I ended up going back more to just regular illustration.
Now I realize you're a humble guy and you don't want to be part of the narrative, but I'm sure that you understand how great of an artist you are. Do you have a concept of that?
I feel like I'm good at what I do, and I'm a good graphic designer, and I'm a good poster artist. So I'm able to make a living doing it. So it's not wasted on me. Obviously, I feel like I'm, I feel like I'm good at the thing that I'm asked to do and that I like to do. So
it's a fair enough. It's a fair enough answer. But then let me ask you this question. I'm going to let you. You're going to escape that. Okay, I'm going to let you escape that. But do you once in a while do you create something where you step back and go, that's pretty friggin' good?
I think that happens every design, and I feel like if you're any sort of artist, I feel like if the thing that you're not working on currently you don't feel like is the best thing that you've ever done, then you're not doing a good enough job. I feel like every time if you ask me what my favorite poster, it's probably the one I'm working right now, and I always think like I think this is the best thing I've ever done. But the wind gets taken out of sails real quick, because then the next day you'll see some other artist who's done they've released something new that just makes you want to chalk your hands off and give up and never pick up a pencil again. So
yeah,
as much as you can bring yourself up to this height, there's always these other people out there that just, take your knees out and remind you like, oh yeah, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
It reminds me of, here I am a young guitar player in LA and I think I'm good. Right. And then I heard Yngwie for the first time, and I was like, well, this is a waste of time.
Well, it's like that famous story about Pete Townsend and Eric Clapton hearing Hendrix for the first time.
Right.
I mean, if you're Eric Clapton and you're a guitar god, and that's people referring to you at that time, and you're Pete Townsend, you go hear Jimi Hendrix, you just be like, why are we even doing this?
It's a waste. It's a waste of a life. It's a waste of a life. I need to go wash cars. I need to get really good at something else really quick.
But I think the best thing about those artists are the ones that not only inspire you, but at the same time they just destroy you. But they're so good, you want to be better. It makes you want to be better, despite the fact you realize you're never going to be up to their level. It's that quality that they have, that their work is so destructive and ruins you, but it's so inspiring and so good that you're like, I want to get better, and I want to evolve.
Now, what do you do? We've got 2 minutes. Do you create for yourself? Is everything just completely personal, or are you worried about what other people think when they see your artwork?
When I was working for Pearl Jam and doing posters at the same time, and I had a paycheck from Pearl Jam, and I didn't have to worry about poster sales, then I created for myself, and I didn't care. Once I became freelance and I was dependent upon making money for myself, then it did change, where it's like, people aren't going to buy this. I need to sell these to make money. And if I'm just making artwork that's appealing to me, somebody else might not want to hang this in their home. And so it does kind of that did alter my creative process, because if I created something when I had a paycheck and it didn't sell, I didn't care. Right.
Right.
So once I was on my own, then it did become this, okay, I need to make sure that this is something that people are going to want and to really dig, and it's not just me, getting my creative jollies out, going, that's funny, or that's provocative,
Are you past that point? Are you past that point now, though, where everybody knows who you are and where you are coming from? So you're back to where you don't have to worry about what others think. You can just be yourself.
No, because I think. I still want people to like the stuff, and it's funny. A lot of the people that buy posters are men, and they're putting posters in man caves and stuff like that. And I have this. There's sometimes where someone will say, my wife even liked this one, meaning that they could post it, they could frame it and hang it in some part of the house that wasn't their man cave. So it's become this sort of weird goal in the back of my head to make artwork that appeals to the wives.
That's funny. That's good stuff. That's radio gold right there. Let's take a break. Our guest tonight is Brad Klausen. Now, when we come back, we're going to jump straight into it. We're going to discuss Egypt, because this is night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Brad, are you on Twitter?
No.
See, Brad, it's not about Brad. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Brad Klausen. Artist Brad Klausen. It's night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. Now, it's been an extraordinary week, and I know that we have managed to discuss Egypt on this show for years. And we're not any closer. We're not any closer to figuring this out than whatever, 5 years ago. And there are so many unanswered questions. But today, it's artists like Brad. It's the work of John Anthony West and Robert Schock and Chance Gardner and Graham Hancock and Robert Bivall, Christopher Dunn, who we had on the show last night, and people like you, Brad, that are discovering Egypt, seeing things with another set of eyes, and bringing this stuff forward to our community. And I commend you for this. And I'm looking at Twitter now. You're not on Twitter, but our audience is posting your artwork, right? They're posting. It's just flooding Twitter right now. And I'm clicking through this and looking at it, and I see so much of the symbolism now. I see it in your stuff, and it's extraordinary. Most people would just look and go, "Man, that's really cool," but they don't know that it's a scarab, right? Right. For you, I just have to know what was the revelation. I have seen Magical Egypt, and your presentation in there floored me. I immediately, you can ask Chance. I called Chance. I was like, dude, Brad Klausen, man, that's his section is just amazing. So take us through that. What was it? I know that there was something where you just went, "Holy crap! There is something going on here." What was that moment?
Well, I mean, it's this long, somewhat sort of build up. So I try to give the shortest synopsis of it. But I mean, when you watch the first Magical Egypt series, there's so much to take away from that. But I think one of the things that I think a lot of people took away from that first series was this revelation of Schwaller's, that the Temple of Luxor is built, laid out in the form of a human body.
Right.
And that aspect of that, I really sort of attached myself to it. It was very interesting to me, and that was sort of an interesting idea that you would build a temple of God to resemble the human body, and that, you know, it talks about certain points of the temple. If you're where the lungs are, the hieroglyphs on the wall are talking about, you know, air and breath and things like that. But the really interesting thing about that is when you look at Schwaller's schematics of the human head over the secret sanctuary of the temple, which is the Holy of Holies. It's right where the third ventricle of the brain is. And that really just started getting me thinking. I was very interested in consciousness and altered states of consciousness and how people are able to access knowledge and things in these altered states. And with that background of Schwaller's revelation of the temple being built in the form of a human body, that really sort of set the precedent. Well, then where else is the human body being represented in artwork? And the one thing that most people are familiar with is the 1990 paper by Frank Meshberger, who pointed out that Michelangelo painting, right, on the Sistine Chapel, and showed that how it was a brain. And then in 2007, a neurosurgeon named Alessandro Paluzzi released a paper which he corroborated Meshberger's theory about Michelangelo's brain, and presented a couple other pieces of artwork from the Renaissance that he thought, and him and his team thought, were showing brain anatomy. And these were in big, highly respected medical journals. So this precedent had already been set that the academic community is acknowledging that there is brain anatomy in Renaissance paintings. And once I started kind of going down that rabbit hole and trying to, and once you get into esoterica and the mystery schools, and inevitably you start, if you're looking in the right places, inevitably you start getting kind of confronted with brain anatomy and the terms. And because of the internet, because of these, the image search that you can do on the internet, when you type in, looking up for what brain anatomy looks like, you just get this wall of images. Like, when you look up anything online, you just get hit with just all kinds of images relating to every sort of aspect of whatever you just typed in. And once I started looking at and familiarizing myself with brain anatomy, I just started to recognize patterns and compositions and poses I had seen in art history class. And that's when it kind of helped validate that idea that Schwaller had, that the temple is built by the body, and with these other what Meshberger and Paluzzi were showing, that there is brain anatomy and the body being represented in different forms of artwork. And it was crazy to look at some of these examples of brain anatomy that I never looked at, because I'm not an anatomist, I'm not into neurology. I never looked at any of that stuff before. And seeing things where I said, I know I've seen that pose before, I've seen that posture before, and it was in art history class, and it was of, statues that are figurines, small statues like the Venus of Willendorf and stuff like that, where those things are, 25,000, 40,000 years old. And it's the more I looked at brain anatomy, the more I could kind of see patterns and compositions that I'd seen in art history class. And that's when it all kind of just, it started to make sense in a way that things had never made sense before.
And you start to, because I did the same thing, and I certainly have done it since your presentation too as well. It's almost like I can't escape it. But you now start to notice it everywhere, not only in Egyptian art, but throughout history, like you're saying, in from the Sistine Chapel and onwards and outwards, it seems to be everywhere. And now you almost can't help but look at a piece of artwork and start looking for anatomy.
Yeah, and especially once you start understanding the symbolic language that's used, you can start seeing that even if it's not representing anatomy exactly, it's representing processes that are taking place in the body. And I think it's like any people always say that art is subjective, and I think that's true to a degree. You could make a painting and it can mean so many different things to so many different people. But a lot of the times, especially with symbolic artwork, is that there's an act that it's not subjective. The artist had an intention when they made that, and they used those symbols for very specific reasons. And if you know that language of symbols, you can kind of work back what the artist is trying to say and what they're trying to communicate. And it's not something that's subjective where you can just say, well, this painting makes me feel this way or that way. And that's great about how you feel about it. But the artist who made it, you can tell that they're trying to communicate something, because they're using symbols the same way that, a high-level mathematician, if you look at some Goodwill Hunting type scene of a MIT physics class where there's some crazy equation from floor to ceiling, that's a whole bunch of cryptic symbols, and most of us have no clue what they mean, right? But to the mathematicians, all those symbols have meaning. And you can see that in esoteric artwork. You can see, especially like in alchemical artwork, you can see symbols being used, and you can see that there's something being conveyed here that's not subjective. You can kind of get behind the mind of the artist and understand where they're coming from.
Now, what about, you almost sound doctorish, okay? Your medical terms, parts of the body and the brain, the heart, the nervous system. It sounds like you went into a general study of the body to start to understand what was really going on here. Am I mistaken?
I did start. I have a whole bunch of medical textbooks and stuff like that, and they're so dry, and it's so difficult to dive into that stuff. So it is a really difficult subject to get into, and I'm terrible at it too. I mispronounce things as well, and the names of anatomy and stuff like that. So it's a whole field of study that obviously you can spend an eternity having to learn all the terms and to learn how everything works. And I'm at this point just at an extremely superficial base level of understanding these things. I mean, mostly where I'm coming from is just pattern recognition of just seeing shapes and forms. And so then when you get down into the actual nitty gritty of it and how these things function, that stuff usually puts me to sleep once I try to investigate and read that stuff, because it's so dry and it's so textbooky and medical and scientific. But you do have to kind of venture into that thing and start familiarizing yourself with that stuff, and then you just realize, there's so much of this I have no idea about, that it's gonna, like, I could spend a lifetime studying this, and I'm it's a daunting field to poke your toe in the water to, dip your toe in the water to.
And this is where, for me, it gets a little bit nutty and crazy, but the facts are the facts. If you go to Da Vinci and the way that he studied the human form, right? And what he had to do to understand the systems of the human body. Pretty disgusting, but he did what he had to do. But we have to think about what year that was. And then you back up. You have to back up 2,000 years plus another 2,000 years to get back to these periods of the ancient Egyptians that were doing the very same thing. Right? Now, that gets a little bit crazy to me, in that the Egyptians obviously understood human anatomy, and they weren't supposed to.
Yeah, and even that idea that people always talk about, that they didn't put any emphasis on the brain and they scraped it out through the nose and that stuff. I think that's a great misconception about their knowledge of not only the brain, but of the brain in relation to consciousness. And I think they had such a complex understanding of anatomy and the brain and how consciousness relates to it, that it requires us to greatly change what we understand of what they knew.
And what the functions were. It's one thing to represent it artistically, right? Okay, or maybe a carving or the Eye of Ra, and that is in its very basic form. But they either they fully understood different parts of the brain and its functions, or they were certainly interested in trying to discover not only the brain, but different glands and the functions of the body. And that's wasn't supposed to be happening with Stone Age man at 2500 BC.
Right. And even, I don't think too many people in the academic world have seen my presentation, that first Magical Egypt, but me even just throwing out the idea that human beings knew about brain anatomy in 25,000 BCE, that they're going to scoff and laugh at that, because that's just preposterous. How could these Paleolithic people have any understanding of brain anatomy? And it's something that I can't say, but all I can say is when I look at some of those statues and those figurines, is that it's extremely similar, if not exact representations of parts of the brainstem and parts of brain anatomy. And I've come to the opinion, like your intro that you had talking about, knowledge and all of these things. I mean, John Anthony West 101 is that, civilizations don't evolve linearly, that the evolution is a thing. Anybody who has chickens, like we have chickens, you can see evolution in the chicken. Those are little dinosaurs. They have little dinosaur feet and little dinosaur faces and feathers. But the idea that civilizations are just this linear progressive, from simple to complex, like you were talking about in the beginning. We've seen dark ages. We've seen rise and fall of empires. I feel like we're currently living in a time where as technology gets smarter, people are getting stupider. So I almost feel like we're currently living in a time where things are starting to degenerate. And I think that's something that needs to be address, like you were saying, the things that we're taught in school, is that it isn't just simple to complex. It's boom and bust. You have golden ages and you have renaissances and you have dark ages, and then people forget stuff and then they remember stuff. And that's one of the interesting things about that myth of Osiris, is that idea that he gets dismembered and Isis has to remember him. She has to put him back together, and all the parts are scattered all over the place, and she has to go find all the pieces of Osiris. And that idea of remembering something, I never thought about that word in that way before, but to dismember something and you're remembering it and putting it back together is almost like this reassembly of things that have been scattered and lost. And I think that's what, like people like John and Graham Hancock and this whole school of sort of alternative history has been able to do, is to been kind of remember all those parts and pull it back together and say, hang on, it's not what we're being told it is.
It's so funny. I did want to talk about this earlier, but somebody just tweeted, Liz just tweeted, when Da Vinci was studying the human body, he took corpses under the Vatican and cut them open and drew them out. Those bodies are medical textbooks today. Exactly. I didn't want to say that over the air. But that's what, it's a pretty fascinating thing that we look at Da Vinci and his discovery of the human body, And just like you said, we can go back to these goddess figurines that are tens of thousands of years old, or ancient, old,
yeah,
old, and there it is right there, representing the brain stem. And the original goddess that you talk about in Magical Egypt too. Which figurine is that?
Well, there's the Venus figurines, but then there's like Artemis of Ephesus and Diana. There's those that are the kind of multi-breasted, strange figures. There's those. Well, the
original Venus one, the one that's crazily proportioned, that's in the Pope's office at the Vatican. It's sitting on the fireplace mantle, and he looks at it all day long. Isn't that
surprising? I guess
it's kind of creepy when you think about it. But
interesting to think about that idea that if the brainstem is really sort of I've kind of subscribed to this idea that the human beings are all kind of radio heads, and we receive consciousness the same way that your television receives programming and your computer receives the internet. Is that it does seem to me that the brainstem is sort of the crucial piece of the hardware that deals with not only consciousness, but that connects people to these ideas or these feelings of divinity or wholeness. So it's maybe not surprising that somebody like the Pope would have a statue, whether or not he knows it is dealing with brain anatomy or not. But that is sort of I would be willing to speculate that the brainstem is sort of the seat of these consciousness experiences and these higher states of these sort of ecstatic religious experiences, these visionary states that people have. That there's something going on with the brainstem as a sort of a spark plug or a catalyst to get to these higher states. So maybe it's an interesting synchronicity that the Pope has, a Venus of Willendorf in his office.
Well, it depends on why he's looking at it. I said it, Brad. I said it out loud.
Right.
Well, and
even the Pope likes, fat bottom girls.
Yes, you're right. I can't wait for that movie, by the way. I can't wait for Bohemian Rhapsody. I cannot wait for that to come out. Okay. I want to, before I ask my next question, I want to go back to what you just said, which is, and I think we're starting to figure this out. What, if our body turns off, right, you die, right? The switch is flipped and no more electricity to the brain. Does that mean that certainly your memories are gone? I can understand that part. It's an electrical system. But the consciousness, the thing that makes Brad Klausen, what happens with that? And is that something that is just received, right? That the brain is an antenna and it is receiving consciousness, and that the consciousness doesn't go anywhere. I think that science is getting closer and closer to figuring that part out. But that's where we are today in 2018. We're getting close to these questions. Clearly, the Egyptians had a grip on this, and they understood this a long time ago.
Yeah, and I would even say that I feel like every sort of esoteric or philosophical sect of any sort of religion, the sort of philosopher sages, be it the Sufis in Islam, or the mystery schools in Egypt, or Greek or Chaldea, or the Gnostics or the Essenes, or the Nadon Taoists in China. That if you go looking at all of the sort of the esoteric sects of any religion, it seems like it's just common to any of these human beings that are seekers, that are philosophers and sages that are contemplating these things, just like you and I are curious about these things. That human beings have been curious about this from the get-go, and it seems like it should be the most important, pressing issue of the day all the time. I'm often blown away that people don't spend very much time thinking about what is this? What are we doing here? How did we get here? What is happening? But if you go into these other esoteric schools of thought, they all seem to be getting the same realization and the same point, which is that you can have these experiences while you're living, and you don't have to wait till death, where you are having some sort of visionary, mystical experience. And everybody gets kind of hung up on this stuff because it brings in the idea of divinity and God and all that stuff. And there's so much baggage with those words. The thing that I take away from it, though, is that regardless of the God side and the divinity side, that all of these experiences, people talk about being face-to-face with knowledge and that they're receiving information. And that's something that we can wrap our heads around, that we can put on the shelf for a little bit, the bigger pictures of like, where does consciousness come from and divinity and that stuff, and just looked at all of these experiences accessing wisdom, and they're accessing information. And even when Enoch gets taken up into the heavens, he's shown information. He's shown astronomy. He's shown the measures of the world. And I think when we ask that question of how do the Egyptians know what they knew, I think you can start finding out that it's something that human beings have known throughout our history, is that there are ways in which we can access information and through which revelation of universal truth is shown to people, and we see it. And if you look at the world that we live in, there's just demonstrable truth where you look. The fact that you and I are talking, the science of these phones and our computers, that is demonstrably true. So every innovation of human beings is some revelation of something that's just a truth, right? And right. So I think the Egyptians and these esoteric schools figured out ways to access this sort of, for lack of a better word, this cosmic database of universal truth. And they were able to see it in these visionary states and bring it back and say, okay, I think I figured out how we could solve this problem. I think I figured out how we could move these stones. I think what you really have is just a group of extremely curious human beings throughout time who have figured out ways how to access knowledge and wisdom. And if you go through all these wisdom traditions, they're all saying the same thing, that they're becoming, they have figured out ways to access higher levels of knowing.
When we come back after the break, I want to specifically talk about your discovery of these goddess figurines and what they actually represented and how you went through that process. And so before we get to that and before we get to the break, I want to specifically ask you about the Eye of Ra. Now that I know that it represents the pineal gland, do you think that there's a chance that there's something lost in the translation, that it is not the Eye of Ra at all, and that's not what is there? It is just simply the pineal gland and what it represents as the third eye, that it looks like an eye to us, so we've just made a mistake now?
I know. I think one of the misconceptions about the Eye of Ra, the Eye of Horus, is that it's strictly the pineal gland. I think the work of Gary Osborne, he was the first person I'm aware of that has shown that the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Ra seems to be showing more of the brain than just the pineal gland. It seems to be showing the thalamus and the pineal gland and the corpus callosum and this whole other thing. And I think it's coming up in episode 6, but I even throw out the idea that I think the Eye of, I think the Eye of Horus is actually showing the ventricles of the brain that are the cavities or the caverns in the brain that are around the thalamus and that are around the third ventricle. And I think it's the ventricles are what fill up with cerebral spinal fluid, and cerebral spinal fluid goes and bathes the brain into the.
Well, I guess, but Brad, I guess that's what I'm suggesting here. Right, that it's not an eye. That's all that I'm saying. It's the medulla oblongata, right? It's I see what you're saying. But I think that symbol of the eye, and actually the symposium that I'm going to give for the Magic Egypt thing, talks directly to that idea of this idea of the mind's eye. I think so much when people talk about the pineal gland, they get hung up on this idea of a third eye, and that that we have two eyes and there's this one single eye, and they're trying to locate it in the brain. And I think the idea of the mind's eye is something that is much more easier. I think that's more what that symbol is talking about, is this ability to see inside your head, like, to your imagination. And not only that, but the eye is also a symbol for understanding and for perception and for knowing. And so when
we understand something, we say, "Oh, I see what you're saying." You
Right.
see what I mean?
Right.
You don't see where I'm coming from. So, so sight and vision is not just about seeing; it's about perceiving and understanding. And so, the symbol of the eye, I think, is one of these that gets kind of, unfortunately marginalized as the symbol for the Illuminati. When really the symbol for that eye is the symbol for the eye of providence. It's the eye of God, basically. It's the all-knowing eye that sees everything and knows everything. So the eye is a symbol for wisdom.
We got to take a break right here, Brad. We'll pick up where we left off when we come back. Our guest tonight, Brad Klausen. This is night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. And last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Brad Klausen. We're talking about ancient Egypt, and we're jumping back a little bit further because we're going to lead up and continue the conversation throughout Egypt tonight. And Brad will be presenting online at the Magical Egypt Symposium. And Brad's presentation and everybody else, you can go to magicalegypt.com and check everything out there. Brad, I actually had the chance to go on with Chance. I had the chance to go on with Chance last week, and I had such a great time. And I look at what Chance and Venice have assembled and the intellectuals and the researchers there. Man. Have you been following it?
Yeah, so not as much as I would have liked to because I've just been sort of preoccupied with a bunch of stuff, but I'm grateful that it's all been recorded and I can go back and just go through it with a fine-tooth comb because it is a lot of really interesting people. And that's one of the things, too, about Chance that I don't think people realize is that when I went and saw John in 2013 and I showed him sort of the core of the stuff that I had, I would always bring up stuff from the first Magical Egypt series and say, like, well, when it said this, and he would always go, that was my partner, Chance, who said that. I always thought it was John's information. And I don't think it's good that for this series, Chance is out from behind the camera because you realize how much information he has and how much insight that Chance has. And every time you watch Magical Egypt and the narrator's talking, Chance wrote that. And there's just some profoundly insightful things. And I'm blown away that, if you think of all the people that Chance is emailing with, all of us contributors, and how he's able to keep all this information straight and how he's able to synthesize it all and put it all together. And then he does all the animation and the editing and the directing and the score for the whole thing. It's a truly Herculean Renaissance masterpiece of work that he's been able to do. And I'm always kind of amazed at how much he knows. Yeah, he's incredible. He's about the funnest and most humble guy, right? He's a great combination of both. He's really, really funny. And you start talking to him, and all you have to do, and I do this with him, it's sport. It's just mention a subject or a word and watch his brain work and how he is able to just take off. And you get this knowledge out of him, and you start to realize how deep, how much depth there is to Chance Gardner. He's an extraordinary guy. I'm sure he's listening right now, and he's embarrassed. But Chance, it's the life you chose, man. You don't have a choice. I have just posted. Let's get into these Venus figurines. I've just posted up on Twitter a collection, and you talk about all of these in the film. So they're all here, and they're all similar in that as you talk about your revelations that you had with these figurines, it's pretty much relative to each one, if you know what I'm saying. Whatever part of the figurine you're talking about, it overlaps to all of the symbolism with these ancient Venus figurines. Yeah, and there's a variety of them too. That's one of the things that I'm coming from the point of view through just wanting to know what human beings have known, and it's more of a global, bigger picture. And I'm not good with details. I'm not good with history and chronology, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, I've come to a point where I don't care anymore about how old things are, or where they fit in chronology. It's just proof. These are just the artifacts and of things that human beings have created. And there was some article I saw recently talking about some petroglyphs that were found in India that were supposed to be like 10,000 years old. Right. And so everything just keeps getting pushed back. Everything just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So I've gotten to a point where I don't really care about the time frame anymore. I'm not looking for Zeb Tepe. I'm not looking for the first time. It's becoming more prevalent to me that this is just information that exists and that human beings have been able to tap into it forever. As long as we've been able to contemplate and to think, it seems that there is just a recurring theme throughout human history that human beings spent time contemplating the big questions and contemplating existence and contemplating consciousness and figured some stuff out. I mean, if you think about it, if you're in a monk in a monastery up in a mountain, on some mountaintop, and all you're doing is devoting your life to meditation and prayer and to these bigger pictures, and these are sort of, the professional level sages and philosophers, at some point people are going to figure something out. They're going to make breakthroughs. They're going to have revelations. And we have these revelations all the time. We have revelations of epiphany every day. Somebody has some revelation. I was just watching a video today with Grandmaster Flash talking about how he was able to figure out how to keep the drum beat going on records, and how he ended up creating the whole field of hip hop, and how he created scratching. And at some point, somebody has to have a revelation that nobody else had before. Somebody else sees something in a way, and something makes sense to them. That's just basically a long-winded way to say that when I look at these really old figurines and statues, that I'm now, if you told me if artwork had come out that was said that 100,000 years old, I'm not going to be fazed by it anymore, because it's just becoming evident to me that this is just things that human beings are able to access and able to tap into, and they understand it.
Well, I've got up the earliest Venus figurine. Let's talk about that, because you spent a lot of time on this in
the Hohlefels Venus.
Yeah, the Hohlefels, and that when you look at it, obviously the female form is apparent, right? Okay, we
right.
recognize what's going on here. But as you analyze this figurine and break it down, it's pretty astounding what's going on here. And then when you add in the element, like you just said, right, 25,000 years ago, that takes things to a whole nother level of the human understanding of what was going on.
Yeah, and like I said, I imagine, I think Chance and Venice and I have been trying to find like our neurological Robert Schoch, somebody that we can, show these things to, who's not going to be scared and run off and say, you can't talk about water erosion on the Sphinx enclosure. We need to get a similar sort of academic person to kind of look at these things and, maybe say, hey, you guys are you're on the right path. But that Hohlefels Venus, that one to me is one of all the Venuses. That one to me really looks like a brainstem. I mean, even the thing that to me that really gives it away are the stripes or the ribboning across the chest of the stomach of the Venus, which is what you see on the thalamus. And there's that one to me is just looks. And the other thing too, they say that brainstems are about the size of a thumb. And that Hohlefels Venus is about the size of a thumb. I don't remember the exact dimensions of it, but it's about the same length as a human thumb. So it even is the same size as a brainstem. And the Ishtar statue, there's an Ishtar statue from 2000 BC, I think, found in BCE or whatever, found in Mesopotamia. And that's showing the backside of the brainstem. And the Ishtar statue, she has a necklace, and the medallion of the necklace sits right where the pineal gland sits on the back of the brainstem. And the way that she's holding her breast, which is known as the Ishtar pose, is almost exactly the same as when you see the backside of the brainstem. And those two statues in particular to me were just like, you can't ignore this. When you put that side by side with brain anatomy, it's very similar. And again, that I think most of modern academia would scoff and laugh at that and say that there's no way that human beings 25,000, 40,000 years ago had any information or any knowledge about brain anatomy, let alone the brainstem. And the other interesting thing too about those like the Artemis statues and the Venus statues is this association with fertility, that they're talking about fertility. And there's another way to look at fertility as fertility being like the river of the Nile. It's fertilizing and it's allowing people to survive and live off of and grow food and to have this whole culture. The Nile of the spine, the brainstem, is the start of it, and this cerebral spinal fluid runs down through the spine, and so it's watering the garden of the body, and so you have this other interpretation of fertility, that it's providing the fertility for the body itself. And then you look at the mythology and the associations of these goddesses, like Artemis, and her temples were always built next to rivers and to lakes, and you start seeing this association with water and with fluid, and that's right underneath the third ventricle, and where these cavities of brain fluid are being produced and then being distributed out to the body. So it's not just how these statues look. It's also the symbolism and the stories behind the goddesses and that stuff too, where that helps kind of validate this idea that this, in my mind, is discussing the physiology of brain anatomy.
Now, how did you, the first time as you started to make the connection, like with Holofels and the other early Venus statues, what did you see first? The brain connection. Man, that just didn't sound right, but I guess that's still.
I think there was one that was a plastic model. Like I said, the great thing about any sort of internet image search is you get to see. If you type in brainstem, you're going to get to see drawings. You're going to get to see illustration. You're going to get to see photos. You're going to get to see models and all that stuff. And there was a plastic model of the brainstem with the thalamus sitting on top of it. And the way that the thalamus was depicted and the way that the third ventricle was depicted, it looked like the snout of an animal. And I looked at that and I went, I've seen this whole composition with the snout of an animal sitting on top of a column. And I was like, it's the ram sphinxes of Karnak. That one, when I started seeing that and I put it side by side, that's when things really started to click. And I went, they're showing you a brainstem and the ram's head sitting on top of it is the brain. And that's when things really started to click, and I went, there's something here, you know.
I'm looking at it, and it's pretty, for me, because of your presentation on this, that's exactly what is being represented here. And I don't want to sound like it's not female, right? And it's not fertility. Well, okay, but it can still be both. But certainly, yeah. The brain is represented here. And,
and I mean, any good symbol can work on multiple levels, and that's one of the things I think people don't understand, because you see the symbol of a stop sign and it's, danger, and it should have one meaning. Right. It shouldn't have multiple meanings,
Right. And now we're suggesting clearly, and so are you, that they were doing autopsies, right? You have to be able to remove the skull skillfully and not damage the brain, and then turn around and cut the brain apart too as well.
Yeah, I would have to imagine, and unless it's, like I said, unless you're thinking of some sort of, like remote viewing of the body, and they had some sort of ability to see within and see stuff. But I would think the common sense thing would be that, I would imagine somebody got their head cracked open by a rock and split open, and that was probably the first time that somebody said, "Look at this," and you said, "What's in there?" I mean, I would imagine any early human beings, if you're hanging out with your tribe and your people and someone's head spills open, that there's going to be some person who goes, "What is this? What's in there?" And I would think they probably were carving up bodies and being inquisitive, because we do it too, right? So it's the human beings that we've been. Da Vinci did it. He was curious. He wanted to know. You just have to go down that gruesome path of carving up bodies. But my brother-in-law works in the medical field, and I've talked to him about when you have to learn about working on cadavers and stuff like that. And I think there's certain people that just have the stomach for it.
I remember in biology, when it came to the dissecting of the frog, right? Mm-hmm. I miraculously missed that class, right? And my biology teacher, I didn't want to do it. I couldn't deal with the worms. That I could not deal with it. And so we had to do the frogs, and I don't show up. And he's like, "Okay, well, you've got to come in. You've got to come in on Monday." I missed that. Okay, you've got to come in on Saturday. I'm going to be here on Saturday, and you and I are going to do this together. For whatever happened, I didn't do it. You know how I got out of it? I never dissected a frog. I had to wash his car. Dude drove a Corvette and made me wash his car. I'm not making this up. I never dissected the frog.
It's an interesting system of barter.
I couldn't do it, and I was totally cool with it. You know,
I will happily wash your car and just cut open that frog.
I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. Now let's move into let's jump 10,000 years. You start to with Chance, and you guys are going through the symbolism of statues and entrances of different temples, and certainly you do cover Luxor and others, where this symbolism of anatomy is right there. It's right there in front of you. Now, think about how many tourists, Brad, are walking past this all day long and see feet, right? They see shoulders, they see heads, they see a statue, they see somebody sitting, they see somebody standing, but they don't see the symbolism of what is going on here. But now it's right there. It's staring at you in the face. Now, take us through that and how you started to see this too as well.
Well, that's just funny too. Like when we were in Egypt with John, we were at Luxor, and it was just swarming with, as he calls them, grackle, just swarming with tourists. And I came up to him. I said, I think I figured out what the Temple of Luxor was for. And I said, I think they built it for a backdrop for people's photos, because that's all it was people just taking pictures of themselves with with the Egyptian temple behind it to go put on their social media or something.
Right.
But I think it's the same thing, like I was saying before, with a lot of artwork that is the like Chance and has been sort of talking about this idea of didactic artwork, that there's artwork that is teaching you something, and it's conveying important. It's relaying information. It's not just something pretty to look at, you know. And I always use the Chance and I talked about this too, the idea of an owner's manual. And I mean, if you imagine if your car broke down and you pop open the hood and you don't know what to do, and you go to get the manual out of the glove box, and it's this cryptic 800-page poem, but every part of the car is, being, and it's all an allegory for how the car works, or it's some sort of cryptic book of imagery, like alchemical imagery, but it's all relating to, how the car works and how the engine works. That would be confusing to most of us and not make any sense. Like, why wouldn't you just write down the information, say, this is how the car works? Why are you giving me this cryptic artwork? So I think it's one of the things that we need to address in this field, is that it's not just artwork for the sake of making artwork. It's artwork for the sake of relaying information. And not only that, relaying information across the barriers of language, because you don't need to speak Egyptian to look at some of that artwork and have it affect you, or to see what it's saying. And I think that is something that hopefully we can convey through this second round of this Magical Egypt series, is that there's more to artwork than just aesthetics and just decorating a temple and just having these offerings to the gods and just saying, look, we made this temple of you or this statue of you in hopes that you will bring us food or do whatever. This isn't just the superstitions of a primitive people. This is the artwork of a highly intelligent people who've been able to encode information in symbol and metaphor, and do it in such a brilliant way that we're still talking about it today.
And you guys break down Abu Simbel too, as well.
Abu Simbel?
Yes.
I don't have anything on Abu Simbel, but I don't know if Chance, if there's somebody else in one of the other contributors.
Oh, I thought it was you that broke it down. When you the Ramses entrance there at Abu Simbel, just it's still to this day freaks me out.
Yes, I wish did you go there when you went to Egypt?
No, I didn't go with John. No, I did not. I've talked to John and hung out with him many times and discussed this for hours and hours and hours and hours. But no, I never went. He invited us to go there every single year, but we never went. And I think Chance said that the other day in our thing on the symposium, but it blew past me so quick. I was talking, and I thought to myself, did Chance just say I went to Egypt with Jaws? But I forgot about that. No, I did not go. We're
gotcha.
Yeah, we're going to go to Egypt next year. But back to Luxor and you going up to John, was that when it started to all come together?
Yeah, I mean, getting to go be in those. I think one of the places where things started to really kind of make some sort of not sense, but make me realize that there was something else going on was Seti's, the first temple at Abydos. That temple is amazing. It has some of the most still color. The color on the hieroglyphs there's still a fair amount of it, so you can still get kind of a glimpse of what they would have looked like. But then it's this really elaborate carving too, where it's relief carving. The hieroglyphs are not carved, they're carved off the wall. And that place, when you're looking at the imagery and the hieroglyphs in there, that the whole time I kept thinking, this seems like a mystery school to me. I couldn't put my finger on exactly why. There's times where I take my dogs for walks in the woods, and I'll come out of the woods and think I've learned something, but I can't put my finger on it. Just through hanging out in nature and hanging out in the woods, I feel like some sort of information has been given to me, but I couldn't tell you what it was. I just feel like I'm in the presence of some sort of information. And at Seti's temple, that was happening a lot. I would love to go back there and try and decipher the hieroglyphs there. And the funny thing about Seti's temple at Abydos is that's where that famous hieroglyph of the land speeder and the helicopter and the tank that everybody talks about. Mm-hmm. And that's up on the ceiling in some tucked away thing, and everybody's interested in that thing. And you go, that's nothing. Go look at what's happening on the walls around here, because it's crazy. There's just so much in interesting symbolism and what seems to be these peculiar Egyptian rituals, and that place is fascinating. And I think it was really at every temple you go to, though, you realize that these were not primitive people. This is a highly intelligent, tuned in group of people or civilization of people, or at least the priestcraft was. And I imagine in the same way today that most of us don't understand technology and high level mathematics and physics, but we get to use it. I think the same was probably true in Egypt, that it was the priestcraft that was really the super intelligent group of people that were the architects and the builders and the sages and the philosophers.
Yeah, and there's we got to take a break right here. But when we talk about the Temple of Seti the First in Abydos, it's one thing to carve into stone.
Yeah,
it's another thing to do it in relief.
It's crazy. And anybody go try and take a piece of stone and try and carve anything into it. It's. The other thing that's crazy about the hieroglyphs too, not even just the relief ones, even the ones that are carved that are into it, they don't ever slant. Like when you write on a piece of paper and the line starts going crooked, they're perfect. The precision, the whole thing. And if you go to Dendera, which is probably one of the most verbose temples there is as far as hieroglyphs go, it's a masterpiece. It's crazy how from floor to ceiling,
floor to ceiling. And when we say floor to ceiling, we're also talking about 3 or 4 stories of wall.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's not 8 feet, right? These columns are 50 feet, and they're carved from top to bottom, and they're 8 feet in diameter, all the way to the ceiling and across. It's unbelievable. Let's take a break right here, Brad. Fascinating conversation. This is Fade to Black, night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Brad Klausen. We're talking about Egypt, as promised. More with Brad after we come back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com. Dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. Our guest night artist, Brad Klausen, is here. We're going to continue where we left off. And actually, Brad, I want to talk about you and your artwork and the influences that are there now. But this is what is interesting. I'm holding up for the camera here. For everybody. This is a piece of sculpture that I have. It's Egyptian, and it was removed from a tomb. And here it is. It's mounted. It's heavy. This thing weighs, I don't know what this weighs, but it's got to be 10 pounds, right? It doesn't look very big, but it's very heavy. Anyway, I I bought this, Brad, because it looks cool. There's a cartouche on it on one side, but there's a pharaoh or a queen seated, and on the other side there's a pharaoh and a queen facing each other, and it's very, but I have no idea what it is, right? I have no idea what it says. I've never had it translated. I've looked at the cartouche and compared it to others, and I've never been able to figure it out. I'll hold it up to the camera. You can see the cartouche right there, right? Maybe somebody out there can figure it out. But I bought it because it looks amazing, and it sits here in the bunker. And if we go back to like the Roaring 20s, when Egyptian art went across fashion, right? It was everywhere. But nobody knew what it meant. Nobody cared. They did it because it looks cool, right? You dig what I'm saying?
There's some mystery to it, yeah.
Yeah, and nobody knows. And I have this here because it looks cool. I have no idea. This could have some crazy spell attached to it. I wouldn't even know, right? Some kind of activation when you look at it. But that today, like with your artwork, and you're incorporating Egyptian influences into it. Do you consider the symbolism, or is it because it just looks cool?
I think there's some of both. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the things that is so interesting about those the Ram Sphinxes at Karnak, and the thing that probably drew me to them when I was there is that they're just cool looking. You know, from a graphic design point of view, they're just interesting. You know, they always, and plus when you go into Karnak, I don't think they're set up the way that they would be in the Avenue of Sphinxes, but they're all just kind of, they've got them all side by side, so you get to see, 30 of them all in a row. Mm-hmm. And they're just, from a graphic design point of view, it's cool. It's just it looks like it should be in like Voltron or something, and all those Ram Sphinxes are going to get up and form some giant other robot. But there is some of that too, though, is that any good artwork, you want it to be like, even Chance with the second round of Magical Egypt 2, he's got a lot of information that he wants to convey and put out there, but he also wants it to look cool, right? From an artist standpoint, you also want it to be pleasing and to be, so that's really what you're doing. You're drawing people in through look at how interesting this is, and not only that, look at how, for some reason, if the proportions are done right, you're going to be drawn to it naturally anyway. I mean, that whole idea that beauty is in the eye of the beholder is somewhat true, but we all recognize beauty. We all recognize symmetry as being beautiful. And there's things, sure, where you can say there's asymmetry and these things can be beautiful, but there's a reason why Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are considered beautiful people. They may not be your cup of tea, but the proportions of their face are pretty close within sacred geometry and balance and symmetry, and we all respond to beauty. It's a really interesting thing about being a human being, but not that we respond to these proportions. We respond to the golden ratio and those things. For some reason, our brain is dialed into that, and it looks appealing. More so, like anybody can. You can look at something that's discordant and displeasing, and then you can look at something that's very neat and very clean and very symmetrical. And even if it's not your style per se, you can see that there's something about it that you're drawn to it. So that the ability to incorporate, golden ratio and Fibonacci sequences and these mathematical principles that seem to underlie so much of our physical world, and at the same time then to incorporate imagery and to incorporate messages and information is sort of a definition of in my opinion, of a masterpiece work of art. That it's not just a cool painting in your hotel room that you're like, I like the color fields and that makes this wall look interesting. It's beautiful to look at, but at the same time it's working on multiple levels, and I think that's what any good artwork should do. Is that it should speak on a variety of different dimensions.
Do you have a favorite symbol, if you will, of Egyptian artwork that you like to incorporate, whether it's a pyramid or a sphinx or the Eye of Horus or what have you? Or the scarab, for instance. Do you have...
I use the symbol that I go to all the time, and it's almost, there's times where I realize, like, I'm subconsciously now I do it, is the eye. It's not just the eye of Horus, but just the idea of the eye. I mean, as a visual artist, that's you know, it's sort of my thing, right? It's having to see and use my imagination, and so I go to that symbol all the time. And I'll say this is the interesting thing, that in this, we talk about these symbols of pop culture and stuff like that, and there's all this talk in this sort of conspiracy community that in music and in entertainment, there's all these esoteric symbols and these occult symbols that people are using, and they're using them in a nefarious sort of way to show you, you know, evil or darkness. And I have, in all the artwork that I've done where I've incorporated the symbol of the eye or any sort of esoteric or occult symbolism, no one has ever asked me to do that. No band has ever asked me to do that. No management company, no record label. No one has ever once said, hey, can you throw in this Freemasonry symbol, or can you throw in this or that? I think that's all been my own decision to do that. And no one's said stop doing it either. No one's ever said, like, hey, man, stop putting those, you know, Illuminati all-seeing eyes in our artwork.
Right.
No one said that.
That was my next question. Have you ever had any blowback? Have you had, Pearl Jam or a band come to you going, you know what, man, we're being accused of being,
Right. Yeah, no. That's, I keep expecting someone to be like, hey, we didn't ask for that. Why, you're doing this stuff. And the thing is, I as someone who pays attention to symbols and stuff, I see all the same stuff that everybody else sees. I see the, Katy Perry video with, Egyptian symbology. I see the Super Bowl halftime shows. I see Jay-Z. I see all of that stuff too. So I can't speak to that part of the music industry because, for one, when I started working for Pearl Jam, they were on Sony, they were on Epic, and they got just tremendous freedom from a record label to create all their own artwork. So when I started working there, we could do whatever, we wanted to. There was no record label saying, nope, you got to do this, you got to do that. So I can't speak to the other side of the music industry, or the sort of executive side of it, where there's record labels and these people that maybe are having their finger in things more than they should, because everything that I've been involved in, that's never been a part of it. So whenever I incorporate symbology, it's me doing that. And there's times where I wonder, like, I shouldn't be associating the band with this symbol because they maybe don't want it, But it's my effort to try and reclaim some of these symbols away from this sort of boogeyman symbology and away from this darkness, and reclaim the truth that they contain, And I always think that the best way to keep people away from truth is to put them on wild goose chases, and to put boogeymen out there, and to make you think that the thing that is good for you is dangerous and you should stay away from it. So in the same way that the swastika got kind of hijacked by a group of people in a small blink of time, and the swastika, I think the earliest one they found was like 12,000 years or 10,000 years, that symbol's been around for forever. But that symbol is now forever embedded in the psyche of humanity as being a symbol of hatred and intolerance and atrocity. And that symbol's never going to come back. And I see the same thing happening with the symbol of the eye, that it's being tarnished and destroyed by this small group of nefarious kind of people, or at least people that are ignorant about what these symbols mean, and that they contain a great deal of truth, and we shouldn't just be willingly giving them over to people and saying that's their symbol and it belongs to them. Or even the owl. The owl is one of the symbols that makes me the most upset, because I love owls, and I've had a very interesting experience with owls. And whenever people see an owl, they go, oh, that's Bohemian Grove and that's the Illuminati. And the owl existed before any of those things existed. The owl in native cultures, that's been a symbol, and you can't just give it over to these people. The Chicago Bulls don't own the bull, the symbol of the bull. And so my effort has always been to incorporate these symbols and to kind of reclaim them back to their true sort of meaning, that they contain knowledge, and it has nothing to do with creating a one world government to make everybody have one world currency and all be slaves. There's real truth and real information in these symbols, and obviously power structures don't want us to have access to that, so they flip the script and they say, yeah, don't look at that, that's that's evil and that's darkness, and stay away from it. And so for me, it's more about giving these symbols back to their rightful place, and not just saying, okay, these people can have it, they dragged it through the mud, so now it's theirs. And you don't get these symbols. Like, they belong to all of us, and I'm not going to allow one group or one supposed group of people, whether they exist or not, to in the psyche of humanity. I don't want them to take it anymore. Like, these symbols belong to all of us. They're almost a birthright in a sense.
Well, we can't help, and certainly if we understand symbolism in most forms, we see it everywhere. Rita and I went down to San Diego a couple of weeks ago, and we were staying on this golf course, and one of the houses that was there, we look, and on the back of the house are two giant owl statues on this balcony, probably 3 feet tall, right? Gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going straight there. Okay, obviously, whoever owns that house understands what's going on. They've got these two giant owl statues on the back of the house facing the backyard. Wow, staring at if they have a party. You know, I'm thinking all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And then the owner says to us, no, the owls are there because the owner doesn't like birds in his backyard. So he's put the owl statues there to scare away the birds.
That's just what he's telling you. He's really making sacrifices to Moloch while you're not looking.
Right. I'm just like, come on, right? But
well, I have a little garden statue of an owl that's sitting. It's in the Magic of Egypt series. They use it as B-roll. We show it, and I call it Sophia. That owl to me is a symbol for wisdom, and the whole idea of owls being able to see in the dark. You know, it's this idea that they're able to see things that other people can't. In some cultures, the owl is, synonymous as an omen of death, and people would think that if an owl showed up, it meant that somebody was going to die. And so it depends on where you find the meaning that's given to it. But to me, to the whole idea of the wise old owl. And the funny thing is I have two of them. I have a white owl statue and I have a black owl statue, and the white one's outside and the black one's sitting on my desk. And I knew when filming the Magic of Egypt stuff, I had to take that black owl off my desk. Otherwise everyone would go, look, an owl, he's one of them, and I get so upset because I have such reverence for owls. I always want to stick up for my owl friends and be like, they don't own that symbol. All of the eye and the whole idea of Big Brother, the whole idea, it's a perfect symbol for an eye on top of a pyramid, because we live in a world where the 1% has all the money and it is a pyramid scheme. And because the NSA, they're all looking into everything that we do. It's a fitting symbol. But that idea of Big Brother only came out in the book of 1984. What, like the 50s? When did 1984 come out? I mean, that's a very new kind of idea to a symbol that's been existing for forever. That's been a symbol for the eye of God and the eye of providence. And then, just flip it and turn around and say, now it's the eye of, the NSA and Big Brother keeping track of all of our text messages.
But does it change the meaning of the symbol or its influence or its effect on the individual if it's explained that way? I don't think it does. Let me give you another example. I mean, once it's there, the meaning is individual, right? And it's an emotional connection.
Sure, yeah, but I think to me that's sort of the problem that I see happening is I see these symbols being turned away from what there's really real meaning in them. And to me, that's to put on my tinfoil hat. That's really the way that power stays in power. Is that knowledge is power, and you can't destroy universal truth. Universal truth exists for forever, but you can muddy the waters for how you get to universal truth, for how you get to these answers. And if along the pathway, did you see Black Panther?
Yes.
The scene where what's his name, Killmonger takes like the sacred plant, he has the vision, and then he says, "Burn them all."
Yep.
That I see a lot of that in the same idea of Osiris being dismembered and his parts being scattered. I see the same idea that you see the pathway to knowledge, and in order for you to retain power, you say we need to destroy all this so nobody can follow up the same way that I came, the same pathway that I came. And so let's muddy the waters and make a bunch of wild goose chases and tell you that, everything that's good and healthy for you is going to destroy you and ruin you, and you should stay away from it. I think people are smart and figured out that when they got to, maybe it's some person who wasn't allowed into Plato's school, or, wasn't somebody allowed into the mystery school who had some sort of vendetta and said, I'm going to rearrange these symbols and I'm going to make it so that nobody can unseat me from power, because anybody can look at this and figure out the same things that we did, right? Anybody like that Killmonger, anybody could take one of these psychedelic plants and have the same vision. So let's make sure that no one does that, And I think it's a real easy psychological tool to make something truthful seem scary and to tell you to not touch it and stay away from it.
Well, exactly. And 3, maybe 4 years ago, I do a show on owls. Okay? I do a show on owls.
Mm-hmm.
I have the guest. And the next day, Brad, I'm not making up a word of what I'm about to say to you. So I do this show on owls, UFOs, supernatural, connection, parallel world. You know, it's all there, right? So the next day, Rita is walking through a parking lot the next day, and down on the ground, she finds in the middle of this empty parking lot, she could have walked 5 feet to the right, 5 feet to the left, right? Giant parking lot. She walks and comes upon a giant, solid gold, antique owl ring with ruby eyes. She picks it up, and it's solid gold, right? And it's an owl. She comes home and goes, check this out. Now, and I'm talking about, this is a solid, it's got weight to it. This is a gnarly, heavy, amazing, custom-made owl ring. Now, she listened to the show the night before. We've been talking about owls for 24 hours. And then she walks through a parking lot and finds an owl ring. Now, we haven't found another one, right? We've never had an owl encounter. But now owls suddenly have a meaning to us. And we are going to respect the owl and the mythology behind it. And we're going to start listening to when other people speak about owls. Now what happens? Everybody's talking about owls. We hear owls in conversations. We see it on TV. We see them fly. You understand?
Like when you're buying a new car.
Yeah,
you see that car everywhere.
That's it.
Well, to tell you that I have a similar story. I did a poster for a 2009 Pearl Jam show in Toronto, and at the time I was living in Wallingford in Seattle, and there's a park right next to the Seattle Zoo called the Woodland Park Zoo. And the parks in Seattle are a forest and trails. It's not like a blacktop and a swing set. And after I had done this poster of this owl, the next day I went over taking my dogs for a walk, and an owl came down. And I was like, I just drew you. I just drew that. And so then I kept going to that park that week, right around dusk, to go look for more owls. And I came across a couple who were walking by petting our dogs and said, hey, if you guys see any owls, you should keep your eyes on them, because I saw one. And as I'm saying that, it flies right in front of it. And I go, it's right there. And the couple petting the dogs were like, that was crazy. It was like you called that owl here. And I saw owls in that park after that week for like a week. And ever since then, I see them all the time. And the funny thing is, we moved out to the woods out here, and I thought I'd be seeing them constantly. And for like 8 years, I'd hear them, but I'd never see them.
Right.
And finally, I'm starting to see them more again. But same sort of thing. Like I had talked to some woman who's interested it was at Manly Hall's bookstore in L.A. The woman who works at the bookstore. I told her this story, and she said, it's like I drew the owl into my life. She talked about the interesting wordplay of drawing, like a dam draws energy that it's strange. Every time I see an owl, it makes me think, okay, whatever I'm thinking about right at this moment, I need to pay attention to. I almost feel like when I see owls, it's sort of the natural world telling me, pay attention to what you're thinking about right now. So I've had just a bunch of really cool encounters with them, but I go looking for them at dusk, so it's not surprising that you encounter them when they're out.
Right. You created a sigil. And didn't know it. Now, has that happened again? Now that you know that this is a possibility, have you done another Brad Klausen sigil, right, where it's come to life?
Not necessarily intentionally, but I do think that through incorporating these esoteric symbols that deal with like higher states of consciousness and altered, higher states of knowing, I do feel like through sitting down and spending all this time on the illustrations about that subject and looking at the images, that it is affecting me. And prior to that, there was a point before I got into a lot of this esoteric stuff that I would do artwork that was very heavily political and was kind of dark, and talking more about the conspiratorial side of like U.S. politics and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Federal Reserve, and there was a moment where my girlfriend was like, "It's weird that you're doing this kind of dark political artwork at the same time you're interested in this kind of higher spiritual consciousness stuff. And I sort of went away from that darker stuff because I do feel like maybe it's not so much a sigil, but you are spending time, what you're spending time focusing on might start bringing those things to you. And so I feel like through focusing more on esoteric symbolism and making images about it, it is affecting my psychology and my inner, thoughts, because I'm just staring at it a lot more and trying to go more towards positivity than more towards just being upset and angry and wanting to storm the gates.
And what do you do when the synchronicities start to happen? Do you think it's because you have forced it, or it's the universe reacting to what you have done?
I don't know, but the times when it's happened, I'm just grateful because it's awesome. Like there's times where these little synchronicities happen, and more times than I can recount. And every single time it happens, it sort of warms the soul moment where you're just like, that was unreal. Like, to spend all this time drawing a piece involving an owl, and then they start showing up. Like that I can't explain that. I don't really know what that is or how that works, but I'm just grateful, and it's just in sort of awe and have reverence for these things that you don't seem to make sense, but they're happening,
Yeah, and you have to sit back and actually just enjoy the moment, and don't freak out, just enjoy it. And I think that's what you're suggesting here. I wanted to ask you this.
I know, it's always being thankful. I'm always just like, thank you, that was amazing.
Yeah, so cool. Can I keep you for a little overtime after this break?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'm having too much of a good time, and I also, this is what I want to do after the break. I'm going to ask you one more question before the break. I'm going to go back, and we're going to do a rapid-fire question and response to different pieces of your artwork. I'm going to bring something up, and I want your reaction to each one. And we'll do that for the audience, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. But before we get there, there's also, because we're talking about the universe and the connection and consciousness, there's always the question of deja vu. Have you been through, while creating artwork, and had some crazy deja vu that you have been here before? Possibly suggesting something from maybe even the ancient past influencing where you are now. Has that ever happened?
That's an interesting question. I can't say it's ever happened in the course of creating artwork, or that I felt like this is strangely familiar to me. I'm going to maybe start paying more attention to that now that you bring it up, because I don't know if I've ever really thought about it. But I have experienced deja vu that I know I dreamt of before, where I'm like, I had a dream about this, and then a very similar moment happens, but it's not of any sort of ancient, sort of thing. It's more just like, I feel like I've been in this moment before, the same as anybody else would experience with deja vu. But it's an interesting idea about whether or not you could, that idea of tapping into sort of like archetypal imagery, and these are things you've seen before that are just, part of the human experience.
Exactly.
And no, I'm trying to think. I'm going to have to go back at later and think more about that, because that's interesting.
And what about, this is a quick answer, when you were over in Egypt with Jaws and Chance, did you have any magical moments there at a temple or a structure, a deja vu type of spiritual connection?
I can't say that I had a deja vu type of moment, but I think it was more just you're not going to go there and not be moved and not be in awe of and especially if you're an artist, and not be in awe of just the skill and the craftsmanship and the symbolism. I don't think I ever felt like I had any sort of recollections or anything like that. It all seemed new. I'd never been to Egypt, so it all seemed, there wasn't a point where I felt like, this seems right to me, or this seems familiar, but it would be cool if it did, because who doesn't want to have that,
right.
that feeling.
Let's take a break right here, Brad. When we come back, we'll do some rapid fire stuff with your artwork. I'm very, very curious as to your reactions and your answers to certain things. So let's do that. We'll take a quick break. Our guest tonight, Brad Klausen. This is night 3 of our Egypt week here on Fade to Black. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and my family is safe because of Numana Emergency Food Storage. Just go to the Numana banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code Jimmy10.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can't follow Brad because he's not on Twitter. It's not about Brad. Not about Brad. Hey, what about those insurance commercials? Oh, my car's name is Brad. Do you?
I don't know if I've seen those.
Oh, it's so funny. So funny. Okay. Yeah. So thank you for doing a little overtime with us. And I can't let you get away and get out of here without specifically talking about some of your artwork and the inspiration behind it. And we chose, when we went through and Rita was looking at your stuff, she gravitated towards, like anybody's going to do that, Jacob's Ladder. And we used that for the show, for promotion on the show. It's a pretty incredible piece of work. And what's the story behind it?
It's just a play on the caduceus, the symbol of the caduceus, and the idea of Jacob's ladder being a symbol for the human spine, and the Jacob that has that vision where he sees God face to face, and he calls the place Peniel, Peniel, I believe.
Right.
It's interesting, close to pineal, but that idea that and ladders too are often found throughout any sort of initiatic tradition where there's an ascent up into heaven, or you're either climbing up a ladder or a stairway to heaven, or you turn into a bird and there's a flight and there's some sort of upward movement towards this sort of revelatory experience. So that one's really just about that idea of ascending up the energy, ascending up the spine to it's talking about originally I think I called it the Sushumna, so it's that idea of the Kundalini and the spine being the Sushumna, the central column, and the two snakes being the Ida and the Pingala going up the spine. So that one's all just about this idea of the biology or the anatomy of and states of enlightenment.
I'm so glad you didn't say because it looked cool, man.
Because it looked cool. There's a couple of posters in my catalog that are just that, where someone will be like, "Why'd you do that?" And like, "Because I wanted to draw a shark." Then there's no profound, interesting thing, but and that's usually when the well's relatively dry and you just got to figure out something to do. But I think most of my posters, hopefully they're cool to look at, because that's sort of the premise of graphic design and any sort of artwork. But for me, like you talk about making artwork, for me, it's more interesting when I can encode this other layer of meaning to things. And especially if I can, there's a poster I did for Pearl Jam when they played in Dublin, and trees are symbols for knowledge, and the old Celtic thing like that. And Pearl Jam has a song called In My Tree. And it was one of the times where it all kind of works out, where not only can I relate to some sort of esoteric symbolism, I can relate it to the location, I can relate it to the band and lyrics the band has, so I can tie in all of these different layers of meaning. And those are usually, to me, my favorite posters, where there's 4 or 5 different levels deep of why the image is the images that it is.
Do you have a favorite Pearl Jam song?
Man, if this is one of those quick rapid fire questions that you're just going to ask me, first thing that I'm thinking,
that's
the first song that pops into my head is Present Tense. I really like that one.
Okay.
But I usually like most of the heavier, the Habit songs that are I like the Go, Animal. I like the fast, angry, mean songs, and the ballads and all the stuff are amazing. They do a good job of that too. But I tend to like the ones with some grit and some angst and some anger in them.
The poster for Flight to Mars.
Which one? There's been many.
I'm looking at the UFO.
What color is it?
Blue.
It's blue. Is there a person playing guitar, or is it?
No.
What else is that? Because there's many with UFOs.
Okay, this one is with...
Flight to Mars is a UFO tribute. It's Mike McCready's tribute band to UFO.
Right, and it's an ascension of somebody being beamed up.
Oh, yeah. That was from like 2006. That was from like the early days. That was basically just riffing on the idea of UFOs. That there's some hillbilly in the woods with his 6-pack of beer, and he's getting abducted, and he's going to have a story later. Sort of what's the Fire in the Sky dude? Travis, what's his name?
Travis Walton.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit of that in there.
A little bit of Travis, and there's also, I'm going to say it. Don't be offended. I feel a little Van Gogh-ish with this poster.
Oh, I wouldn't feel offended by that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels a little, the starry night with the blue swirls and
the swirls and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, it's a very cool poster. Okay, let's go to the Foo Fighters with the what's the name of the P-48 plane?
Oh, yeah. Well, so that was just, and unfortunately, I think the Foo Fighters get this a lot because their name is based off of the old World War II, the people that saw UFOs and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I think I fell into this trap too, the Foo Fighters, that you're going to go to UFO imagery, just based off of the name. So it was that was a play off of that too, just the idea that, the idea of pilots encountering these peculiar aerial phenomena.
Have you seen anything in the sky? Have you had your own UFO encounter?
I have had an experience that I didn't strike me as being a UFO. How much time do we have? It would take a little bit of time to explain it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Well, I was sitting out in my backyard. There's one summer where I'd sit out in the backyard and in my hammock and I'd look up at the stars, and I got really into doing that one night. And I went out there one time with my dog Zoe, and I had her sitting on my chest, and there was a genuine moment where I really felt like true, like unconditional love for this being, for my dog, and I think that has something to do with it. I would sit out underneath the stars, and I would try and have just a mantra so I could just sit up and stare at the stars, not let my brain just run all over the place. And I would always repeat "All You Need Is Love" by the Beatles. I would just keep saying that over and over again. And so as I'm sitting out there in the hammock and I'm hanging out with my dog, there was a voice in my head, but it was my voice. It's my internal voice, right? It's not some channeled voice or something. It's the same voice that I hear in my head when I'm thinking. But it said, "Don't be afraid." It said, "Turn your head to the right." And I was curious, so I'll play along with myself, because like I said, it was my voice in my head. And I turned my head to the right, and it said, "Can you see me?" And there were it was nighttime, but there were neighbors and houses nearby that had back patio lights on, so you could see some kind of shadows and stuff like that. And I'm looking over at these bushes in my neighbor's yard, and you could kind of make out, I'm a visual person, I could kind of make out a silhouette in the shadow of a head and shoulders. And I was playing along with myself, and I was like, all right, if you're asking if I can see you, and there's head and shoulders over there, I said, wave. I want to see this shadow. Let's see you wave. If this is this little thought experiment that I'm doing with myself right now. And the nanosecond, the minute, instantaneously that I said, it's this conversation in my head was going on. I said, "Can you see me?" And I said, "Kinda, wave." There was a bright flash in the sky, like a big bright flash of a star, much bigger than, obviously, I'm 42. I've seen enough planes in the sky to see, I know what a flashing plane light looks like. This was a big, bright, just beacon of a star that just blipped. And it was so bright that I was looking over to my side that it caught my attention. And then it kind of skipped like a stone. It blinked and it went over here, and it blinked and it went, and it blinked and it went over that way. Again, this is not a plane. There's planes flying all over the place, right? I know what a plane looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it was a piece of debris in the sky that was reflecting light, and as it's skipping, it's something that's turning some piece of, we have so much satellite trash flying around our planet. Maybe it was something that's just catching reflective light, and it just happened to be coincidentally when the minute I say this thought experiment in my head says, "Can you see me?" And I said, "Kind of wave," there's this big bright light in the sky. I didn't think at all that it was a UFO. I instantly sort of thought of consciousness. To me, it was just this weird, it's sort of like the owls. It was sort of like, and I was just grateful and I was just thankful. But at no point did I think it was a UFO or it was alien or there was any of that stuff to it. I was just sort of overwhelmed with gratitude, like same thing with the owls. It was like, that was insane. That was like nothing I've ever experienced because of this weird little exchange in my mind with myself.
How cool is that, right?
It blew me away. And then, you tell people that story and they're like, "Yeah, they're called planes," or, they're whatever. And I was like, it was, if I just saw a bright flashing light and it just, it skipped across the sky like a stone, that would have been cool on itself. But it was the exchange beforehand.
That's right.
That really, and I don't know what it was. I don't know what that was or what happened. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't scared. I didn't, I was just really grateful and thankful and in awe and just sort of blown away. Like that was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in my whole life. Like,
That's right. Brad, I've had so many of those experiences now with myself and with others, sometimes even hundreds of people around me. And we've all had that happen together. It's happened so much now that, but when you go back to your first time, what you just told me, okay, well, yeah, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. But the first time that it happens, like with you there, that's a life-changing event. And you can't express the meaning of that with somebody else. They just don't get it, like you just said. It's a plane, dude. Come on, man. Right? But it is truly an epiphany. That's the only way it can be described. It's a pretty amazing thing when it happens the first time.
Yeah, and it very well, like I said, I don't know enough about how everything in the atmosphere, how all the satellites and how everything orbiting this planet. I always feel like if aliens were ever to come to Earth or have been here, they would see this like planet full of junk orbiting it, and they'd be like, let's not go there. I feel like there's so many satellites and so much debris that you would look at it and be like, that looks cool, but it's covered in junk. So I don't know enough about what's happening up in the lower levels of atmosphere for metallic things to be flipping and spinning and reflecting light. And so I have no idea what happened there, but I do know what took place inside my head.
It doesn't change the experience. It doesn't.
No, and like I said, the other interesting thing, I'm not one of these hippy-dippy, love and light, positivity, super people. I'm all for, positivity and light and love, but the idea that I had my dog there, and there was this moment of just truly, like, it was an interesting awareness of myself, like, I love this creature, I love this being, and this being is, I truly feel connected and bonded to. I think there was some sort of weird openness that happened through my headspace or whatever, just to be in this place of openness and love and gratitude. And I feel like that had something to do with it. And I would imagine, like you talked about with groups of people having these experiences, maybe that's part of it too. If you get enough of a positive energy or a group of people together, maybe there's something to be said for, Yeah,
there's no question about it. We've got to get you. We'll get you out with us. You know what we do? There's a place up near you at Mount Adams in Washington on the border there with Seattle. With Oregon, and it's called ECETI Ranch. And you can look it up, ECETI, ECETI Ranch. Go there and
heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, go there and hang out with us. And that's it. You leave there. It's like an ice pick to the forehead, man. You leave there stunned. Stunned. Okay, next, the Metallica poster, the red, white, and blue one with... looks like, he's holding two hammers.
Yeah. That one was, I think, in wherever Lars is from, Herning. I don't know if he's from Herning or he's from Lars is from I want to say, it's not the Netherlands, he's Dutch, right?
Right.
Something like that. Well, he was knighted. They made him a knight in whatever his town that where he was born and where he's from. And I don't know if it was exactly in Herning where that show was, or if that was it, but also in Herning on their crest they have hammers there. And so I just thought about this idea of a drummer with these hammers, or someone who's a knight, and so it's sort of a comment about Lars, this idea of this knight with these heavy hammers. And not that Lars Ulrich is the hardest hitting drummer ever, but you get the idea. It's this sort of pummeling force of that is Metallica, this juggernaut of sound.
Let's go with Alice in Chains, and it's the one where you've got everything here. Okay, I don't know who the goddess is, but she's there. You've got the all-seeing eye. You've got a planet. Looks like some DNA symbolism, and it's turquoise and black.
Yeah, that was. I think that for that one, it was sort of playing off the idea of Isis, this sort of queen of heaven, and this idea of something swirling out of nothing, of this force swirling out of sort of the, that idea of chaos and forming. And there are two serpents in that, and there's a crisscrossing kind of caduceus that comes to it. That is almost precedes the Jacob's Ladder one. It's sort of a similar symbology of this swirling caduceus, the spinning caduceus that gets you to this, state of enlightenment.
Yeah, you've got everything here, man, and you've got a little cymatics going on and some sacred geometry. You left nothing out on this poster.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Let me see. Oh, you know what? I've got one of my. It's visually so cool. Well, also the Tron poster is really cool. But the Wrigley Field.
Uh-huh.
I mean, do you get asked about that a lot?
In what way?
It's just just a good looking poster.
Thanks, man. I get people that are looking that want one, but I mean, and as far as like symbolism goes, that one doesn't really have much.
No, it doesn't have any at all. No, that's not the point.
right, yeah. But yeah, no, that's Pearl Jam played Safeco and they played Fenway this summer, and if they keep playing baseball stadiums, I think I'm going to run that concept in the ground of using like old timey baseball players for that. I've used it enough. I'm going to have to come up with something else.
And now I need to go back to. I'm a big MC Escher guy.
Okay. Me too. One of my favorites.
And built to spill here. It's a combination of things going on. I see Escher, I see a little Picasso, I see some Brad Klausen. That's a really, really, really cool poster. A modern take.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was an homage to Escher, and I'm a huge Escher fan, and I feel like unfortunately he gets pigeonholed as the stoner college kid's dorm room poster. And everyone's seen, the famous ones that everybody has. But if you go deep into his body of work, there's some landscapes and some pieces that are not as familiar that I love. That are some of my favorite works of art. And he's just a whole other level of artist, in my opinion. And like I said, it's unfortunate because there's puzzles and there's mouse pads and coffee mugs and there's just so much merchandise that's been made of all of his stuff that it's kind of watered down how good he is, and we all just go like, oh yeah, that's that poster from someone's college dorm room or whatever.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I'll just say this really quick. When I was a kid, I was like 9-10 years old, and I was going to be an artist, and I eventually did, and that's all fine. But I got, for my 10th birthday, I got the complete works of MC Escher, which was a famous book back in, where I'm talking about 1973, 74, right in there. But big, thick, oversized, coffee table book of everything that he had ever done from the first to the last. And you're absolutely right. There are things by Escher that were not famous that were some of my favorite things that he had ever done. Just an extraordinary guy. People
look at like Italian landscapes that are just beautiful. It's not some tricky visual thing. It's just a landscape.
Yep, and I appreciated his mathematics, and I totally get that. But he was just a great artist. He had a really good sense of things. Now, one of my favorite posters of yours, believe it or not, is Faith No More. And now, go ahead, have at it, because everything is here.
Well, so that I guess for that tour, it was called The Second Coming, because I think it was like a reunion tour. Or Faith No More maybe has one, I don't remember. It's 2009, and so just that they said they had to have The Second Coming on the poster, and so just playing off of that was this idea of I think at that point too, that whole like if that passage from the Bible that everybody talks about, if thine eye be single, then the whole body will fill with light. I too, I think, parroted that idea that was speaking specifically about the pineal. Now I don't know if I think it's so much speaking about the pineal and more just about singular vision or holistic vision. If your vision is singular, and you're seeing everything. You know, it's holistic. Then the whole body will fill with light. So it was a play off of that, again, that idea of anytime there's an I in any of my stuff, it's talking about enlightenment. And it was, and I like the idea too, the idea of the band name being Faith No More, that you don't need faith anymore because you know. So there's no more faith necessary. You have knowledge, and it's not something that you just hope is true. You know it's true. And that one has two serpents in it too. And so
we've got to wrap the show. So before, let me go direct with this poster, because you've got two serpents, you've got a pyramid, you've got the pineal gland, you've got the third eye, you've got two all-seeing eyes, you've got an individual, you've got hands holding the serpents, you've got possibilities of so many other things here, all wrapped up into one. Is this a dangerous zone to go into? In that somebody's going to say, look at all of this symbolism. I mean, come on, they're not even hiding the fact, right?
Yeah, no, and I'm sure people would. There's probably people who are listening to this right now that have never seen my work that will go in and look at my work and be like, oh, this is all esoteric, occult, Freemasonry symbolism. This, and like we were talking about with the owls and Moloch, I think, and that's, like I said before, the risk that I run sometimes when I include some of these things, because, like I said, the bands don't ask me to do it, and I wonder, like, if they're going to be upset, and I'm sort of forcing it on them. I'm forcing my own want to express this symbolism on bands that haven't asked for it, you know, in any way, shape, or form. So I do get, there is the apprehension sometimes where I'm like, this could ruffle some feathers, or it could at least upset the people that I'm working for. I'd be like, we're not going to work with Brad anymore. He caused a bunch of controversy. He's putting imagery attached to us that we don't want attached to us, but no one said anything at this point, and
you gave
good or
it
bad.
to
Otherwise, they just go cool poster. They're just stoked on it. There's no like, we saw that all-seeing eye, and we're glad you put it in there. Or we saw that all-seeing eye, and how dare you put that in there?
Right.
You know, it's interesting, and I think, but with artists, I think they're okay with it. I think most of the bands are okay with people being unsure, push. I think, you know, it's the same thing like a punk rocker who wears a swastika on his jacket because he wants to get a rise out of somebody. You know, it doesn't mean he's a Nazi, but he's just like, I know this is going to confront people and cause them to be upset. So I think artists do have that idea of being okay with pushing people to, you know, uncomfortable places and have to wonder and be like, why is that in there? Why are they using that? You know, I think there are certain artists that are okay with using symbolism that's maybe, you know, people are uncertain about it, and just keeping it mysterious and then adding to their own mystique. But that's just my own. No one's ever said that. That's just me talking out loud.
I've got to roll credits in 30 seconds, so answer this as quick as possible. I went through all of your stuff, and I saw an absence of Thoth. Why?
The absence of Thoth, the ibis-headed god?
Yes.
I would say he's in there. I would say anytime you see that eye, that Thoth is in there, that representation of thought and thinking and contemplation and revelation.
Thoth, the god.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think every time I'm using the symbolism of the eye, I associate the idea of thought, this idea of thought and contemplation and wisdom. And so he's not in there with his head. He's not in there, but I feel like he's referenced.
That's a good answer. That was a political answer. That was safe. Hey, Brad, amazing show. Thank you so much. And I can't wait for your presentation for the Magical Egypt Symposium. I can't wait for episode 6. I think maybe you and I might even do something, you know, we might both be in that episode. But nonetheless, thank you so much. This conversation was all of that, and I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and taking the time to chat with me. Appreciate it.
And we'll do it again soon. Thank you so much, Brad.
Take care.
Go create. Thank you, Brad. Have a great night.
Will.
Brad Klausen, amazing. Now, his website, of course, if you need any artwork done, artillerydesign.com. You can go right there. The links are at jimmychurchradio.com. Go to Magical Egypt. .com, and go check out Brad's presentation for the Magical Egypt Symposium. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night is Fader Night. Open lines all night long. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you to Brad Klausen. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I'll see everybody tomorrow night right here. Until then, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.